I was going to make a video about the initial round, the first round of PTR testing in 10.2 about the new raid, where the bosses were testable in the last few days, as well as Mythic Plus keys being testable in the PTR. You get to see and test the new changes to the specs, as well as the new tier sets given to the specs in 10.2. However, before going to do something more generic and more spread to all specs, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, about the outlier that we have seen in the PTR. Now, if you need a hint, here's the first hint. Maybe it's still a bit too confusing. Let's go on with the second hint. What about the third hint? And why not? Why not? The final fourth hint. So, the point in question is that Outlaw Rogue is at the moment incredibly overpowered in the PTR and doing extremely high amounts of damage. Now, you might be thinking, maybe it's a broken trinket, maybe the rework gave them some new abilities that are doing way too out-of-line damage. No. If you look at what Outlaw Rogue is pressing on the PTR, those are basically the same abilities you are used to in pressing as an Outlaw Rogue. Yet their damage is through the roof. So what has happened, of course, is that rogues are receiving 10.2 rework to all three of their specs. Now, to be fair, subtlety and assassination are also doing quite well with the changes, but what took the spotlight is the state of Outlaw. They have received many changes, a long list of changes, some of which were mostly even irrelevant, not even that important, like for example actually changing some abilities like Ghostly Strike or like Killing Spree, which is still somewhat irrelevant as rogues are still not playing with these buttons. What is bigger of a change are these very few additions, these very few quality of life additions to Outlaw. The first in line is Crackshot. Between the Eyes has no cooldown and also casts Dispatch at the same time as casting Between the Eyes when used from stealth. That's the first point. The second point to Between the Eyes is that now, very important, the 20% more critical strike chance bonus is now on yourself rather than on a single target that you were casting Between the Eyes on. The third of the quality of life changes is a brand new talent called Underhanded Upper Hand, which makes Slice and Dice not lose duration if you have Blade Flurry active, and then it makes Blade Flurry not lose duration if you have Adrenaline Rush active, and then it makes Adrenaline Rush not lose duration if you have Stealth active. On top of that, if it wasn't enough, stealth abilities can be used for an additional 3 seconds after stealth breaks. These three changes, especially the first two, have really given Outlaw Rogue a new outlook in 10.2 right now on the PTR. These two new talents in this position in the Talent 3 are very good for the synergies of Outlaw. First of all, the new Underhanded Upper Hand talent scales and stacks with Subterfuge, which means that now you have abilities usable outside of stealth, not for 3 more seconds, but for 6 more seconds, which is a lot of time. You also have extra synergy with this extra duration of stealth, like for example Count the Odds, giving you double duration and double chance to your Roll the Bones if you cast them from stealth. You have things like Night Stalker, which gives you 10% more damage if you are in stealth, as well as things like Taken by Surprise, which gives you 10% haste in stealth. And what obviously makes everything click together is your passive, your Restless Blades passive, because this also reduces the cooldown of Vanish. So, with this very high reduced cooldown of Restless Blades, this is your average cooldown of Vanish, which ends up being a 20 or so seconds cooldown to your Vanish, which gives you a very long, a very high uptime of stealth. If we go back to the buttons pressed by an Outlaw Rogue, you will find that Ambush, which is only usable from stealth, during an entire 30-minute long Mythic Plus key is used almost as often as Pistol Shot, which is the thing you use when you don't have Ambush active. That is how often you can stay in stealth. And this extra stealth duration of 6 seconds, even when you break stealth, is very, very powerful because of the new underhanded upper hand talent. Because now it means as long as this stealth is active, your Adrenaline Rush will last forever, your Blade Flurry will last forever, and your Slice and Dice will also last forever. You will need to refresh Slice and Dice and Blade Flurry much, much less often than usual. In fact, generally, you don't even need to click Blade Flurry to refresh it, but just to get full combo points thanks to the Deft Maneuver talents, because of how long you can keep stealth active, and because of this new talent you can continue to extend these 3 major buffs: Adrenaline Rush, Blade Flurry, and Slice and Dice. And because your stealth can now last for so long, Crackshot, this new talent, gains even more value. Between the Eyes, having no cooldown if you use it from stealth, it used to be a quality of life bit when you use it as your opener from stealth, and then during the Mythic Plus Trash pack, it goes back on cooldown because you are outside of stealth. Now though, you can just spam it almost constantly. And when you spam it, you don't just cast Between the Eyes thanks to this talent, you also cast Dispatch as well. You basically cast a double finisher. You end up being able to be in stealth for so long that talents you previously took all the time because of the amount of combo point generation and extra damage you were able to get, something like Fan the Hammer to empower your pistol shot, now in the PTR is not even being taken. Usually you stop at just 1 point instead of 2 because you are spending so much time in stealth and you're spending so many global cooldowns on ambush instead of pistol shot that having 2 points in this isn't even worth anymore. The duration of your Adrenaline Rush buff, for example, is upwards of 90+% throughout an entire Mythic Plus key, which allows Outlaw to now have very, very good synergy with these talents. And this doesn't stop here, because now you also have a tier set, a new tier set being added in 10.2. Now, this tier set at first doesn't really do much, because the 2-piece buffs your Sinister Strike, which you barely even press. However, the good one is the 4-piece. The one where now, when you use your Roll the Bones, you also automatically refresh one of your already existing rolls up to a 40 seconds duration. And this is quite good because Roll the Bones itself has a 45 seconds duration. And going back to Restless Blades also reduces the cooldown of Roll the Bones, which means over time you will be able to keep up more and more dice rolls, because thanks to this tier set, one of them gets refreshed to a 40 seconds duration. But you are reducing the cooldown of Roll the Bones down to a 15 seconds duration. So 15 seconds later, you can refresh a different one to 40 seconds and then a different one to 40 seconds. This ends up with you having this type of uptime on your dice rolls. There is 6 different dice rolls, and your average uptime on each and every one of them is something like 38%, which means 2.5 to 3 dice rolls active at all times on you when you're fighting, which is very, very good because quite a few of the dice rolls are very powerful. In particular, your Ruthless Precision that gives you more crit. If you look at Outlaw right now, this is the average damage of Outlaw and the crit chance of Outlaw on a player whose stats and stats alone give him 28% crit. With 28% crit, he is able to have a 76% average critical strike chance from his abilities, which is almost a 50% critical strike buff. That is the other massive benefit of being able to extend stealth for so long, and also this change of having Between the Eyes have no cooldown when in stealth, and now giving you 20% critical strike chance buff to yourself rather than to just one mob as a debuff, because now you have a flat out 20% more crit chance almost all the time active on you. You have already Alacrity, which is another 5% more haste almost all the times active on you. You also have Taken by Surprise, which is also a 10% haste, basically always active on you. You have Night Stalker, which is a 10% more damage. almost always active on you. This ends up being a lot of free secondary stats. You know, Outlaw was already going right now, before all of these changes, was already focusing versatility as a main stat. In 10.2, it's gonna lean even higher into that stat because you're gaining so many more free stats, so much more value from haste and crit chance from just your passives and from your talents. This also creates a very engaging playstyle for Outlaw. It's very fast, possibly even faster in terms of APM and button clicks that you are currently having in game as Outlaw, which was already quite frenetic. You are very busy, let's just say, in pressing your buttons. Also, even though we said it's completely broken in Mythic Plus, it's not that in the raid, which is single target mostly, it's doing that badly. Outlaw is still performing quite well right now in the PTR testing of the raid. Yes, it's not nearly as much as it is dominating in Mythic Plus in raid scenarios, because of course you lose a lot of the value from being able to have Blade Flurry always active, from being able to go from one pack to the next in Mythic Plus into stealth, out of combat, etc., which doesn't really happen in the raid. So the damage is not nearly as much out of control as it is in Mythic Plus. So the entire point of the video was, number one, to still praise this rework for Outlaw to make it a bit more engaging with some of the changes, making you much more into using between the eyes in your rotation, ambush as well by the much higher stealth uptime. But of course the next point is, how hard is this going to be nerfed? Because that is the certainty we have right now. Before we go and check on all the other specs on the PTR and how they have been doing, we will likely do it tomorrow. The number one question for now is just how much of a nerf will Outlaw require? As said, it looks strong, perhaps only a bit too strong in single target, but obviously far too powerful in Mythic Plus. So after we applaud Blizzard for the nice changes to Outlaw, we also have to now sit back and wait to see which parts of the kit of Outlaw Rogue, specifically the AoE kit of Outlaw Rogue, will be nerfed in the PTR. That is the big question right now for the bigger outlier in performance that we have seen in these first few rounds of testing in 10.2's PTR. With this out of the way, I am going to leave you to the rest of your day, as well as pondering about the state of Outlaw in the PTR and how hard of a nerf they will be receiving. But besides that, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your Tuesday, I believe. So we're starting our goodbyes as usual by thanking all of our dear Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can still be given, of course, completely for free. You can like and comment down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these superfluous things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I don't know, man, I still think it's a little bit too hot. Honestly, I would like to be closer to the 20s than we are right now, to the 30s, if I had to go by preference.